Hello, today we're going to be talking about designing an effective website. And to do that, first we're going to look at a few bad sites and then talk about the deadly sins of site design. And then we'll talk about how to do it right. So let's look at the first site. Bad sites are really easy to identify. And this one's fairly obnoxious. It's really busy. The colors and the graphics are out of control. You can't even concentrate on the actual text, and the text has about 14 different colors in it. And more subtly, there's actually no contact information on the site. There's no way to get a hold of anybody. The next website has no navigation. It has stuff scattered all over. But the main thing is I don't even know its purpose. Like, why is it here? What's it trying to accomplish? And yes, those two sites are way over the top. I get that. But how about this next one? It's sleek and arty. But again, in a few seconds, I can't identify why I'm there. In addition, the navigation is a little sketchy. When you get to the site, it's just the bars. If you mouse over a bar, it'll show you a little picture with a link, which to me falls into the category of cool, but not necessarily user-friendly. And it could cause some potential problems. There are a lot of people who disable their JavaScript for security reasons, and then they wouldn't even be able to enter the site at all because none of it would work. So you need to think about all those things. Let's move on to review some of the top design mistakes lots of people make in their websites. The first is talking about how great your company is. Instead of talking about how the company is going to solve your needs and your problems, it talks about themselves and how great they are, and that's just not an effective way to sell. The second is violating the 4-second rule. According to research, a person will scan a website for 4 seconds before they decide whether to go deeper or whether to leave. So you have 4 seconds to convey your purpose and why they should stay. This also incidentally means your page needs to load in less than 4 seconds, which can be a problem if you're using lots of bells and whistles. But mainly, you need to let people know why they're there and why they should stay within 4 seconds. It needs to be really clear. Logo and contact information consistency. Your logo and contact information should be on every page and in the same place. People typically expect your logo to be on the top left, and when you click on it, it takes you to the home page. There's no reason not to have this on every page. People need to know who you are, and they need to know how to get in touch with you. No call to action. Your website is a tool. You have a purpose for it, whether it's to boost sales, build an email list, educate consumers. It needs to perform an action. And similarly, on every page, there needs to be something actionable for a user to do. Watch a video, subscribe to a newsletter, download a podcast. It needs to have action. The use of technology doesn't match your product or target market. Using all the new bells and whistles and JavaScripts and movies and etc., it can be fun. But if you're selling something low-tech, it'll make you lose consistency. Do you really want a Flash animation game regarding something like, Depends undergarments? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. They don't go together. You also need to keep your target market in mind. Again, someone, may be shopping for those Depends, clearly probably not as tech savvy, and all of those bells and whistles may confuse them. It's completely different if someone's shopping for the newest online game. They are going to expect the Flash animation and all those things. And then finally, the last big flaw is that people don't test. Sites look different in different browsers, and you need to make sure that they look okay across all the different browsers. Does the site break when the JavaScript is turned off, like the example we used earlier? Everything needs to be tested to make sure everything goes as planned. And with that, let's talk about how to design a website right. Let's go over the top 5 things to consider when planning a website. These are the big picture things that will drive the design of your website. So first, what's the purpose of your site? There's lots of different reasons to build a website. To sell something, to build your brand, to educate your consumer, to name a few. You need to decide this in advance, because if the goal of your website is to generate sales, it'll look, feel, and have different navigation structure than if the goal is to position your company as, an expert in your field. Secondly, who is my audience and what do they want to know? Many times companies become tangled in what they want or feel the need to go on and on about how great the company is on their website. And we talked about that earlier just a minute ago. And while some of this information might be important to convey, mostly the visitors to a site want to know what's in it for me. You need to gear everything from the visitor's perspective. What message do they want to see? What products do they want to see? What will spur them into action, which is what you need them to do. The research that you've done about your target market and their demographic will help guide everything about the site. In addition, it can't hurt to do some additional research. You could do the old-fashioned way with surveys and focus groups, or the new way using online customer reviews and blogs and social networking sites. Another good place to do research is on your competitor's website. If the website leaves you cold or you continually see the same overused mission statements and terminology across those sites, chances are you won't make the same mistakes on your site as they did on theirs. Next, what should the overall look and feel of the site be? Should it be professional, arty, sleek? The overall theme and look should reflect your product and brand. If you're selling hospital supplies, your site's probably going to be more white and sterile. If it's a coffee shop, it'll probably be a little more arty or cozy with brown tones. It needs to reflect your product and your company. And then you need to think about, beyond your logo, is there an overall image or picture that defines your product? So you can use that on your site. And again, the look and the feel will be driven by the research you've done about your target market. The fourth consideration is who's going to develop or manage the site. Are you going to do it internally or externally, first of all? There's lots of pros and cons to both. There's a cost versus capability. It's cheaper to do it in-house, but you may not have the technical capability to do what you want to do. There's product knowledge versus perspective. If you do it internally, you really know your brand and your products super well. If an outside agency does it, they won't know your brand and products as well, but they may be able to give you some outside-of-the-box thinking with messaging and presentation. And then finally, control versus quick launch. If you do it internally, you have complete control how everything looks and how everything gets done, but it may take a lot longer to complete. And conversely, an agency will be really focused on getting your site launched. But at the end of the day, you need to design your site with your capabilities and budget in mind. If you have a big budget, you can pay a programmer to do a ton of Java or animation. If not, you may be going with a simpler site. And you need to consider your capabilities and limitations, not only for the initial design, but also maintenance. I've had clients who have spent a lot of money on an outside firm to build this really cool site, but then they didn't have any capabilities in-house to update it. So they had to keep paying a programmer. These are things you also need to think about because, there are some workarounds. You could have an outside company build you a site, but you could have them build in something like a content manager, which works kind of like Microsoft Word, so that you can update your site internally. So you need to take a big look at all of your resources and then scale your website design to match those resources. And the final consideration to think about is data collection. Most likely you're going to be collecting some type of data on the site, whether it's as simple as an email address to as complicated as a shopping cart with credit card information. Knowing what type of information at the outset will help you know if you're going to need to connect to a database, if you'll need hookups into a customer relationship software for lead management, and how to interact with shopping cart software if needed. You also need to be very aware that if you are collecting information, you need to have a plan to keep that data secure, especially if it's credit card information. So all of those things are kind of the big picture things that will help you feed into your overall website design plan. And now let's kind of move on to the 3 pillars of web design. And those 3 pillars are navigation, content, and graphics. Those are the 3 components that really make up a website. So first let's talk about navigation. Aside from the interactivity that the web provides, websites allow visitors to review information in a non-linear fashion. They can jump around. They can go in any order that they would like. So due to this non-linear nature, you as the designer face a dual responsibility. First of all, you need to create a navigation and hierarchy of content that makes finding information easy for site visitors. Secondly, you need to serve information in such a way that visitors are led to pages that you want them to view. Navigation should not be thought of simply as links from one page to another, but as a specific and planned organization of certain links, which provide an organizational structure. Once established, the navigation should remain exactly the same on all pages, because you don't want to confuse anybody, right? And in order to plan the navigation out, most site designers or developers use a tier schematic that shows how the content of the site will be organized and broken down. So right at the top will be your main categories, and those are always accessible from your home page. Below that, you're probably going to have a second tier of pages that delve a little deeper. And lots of times those are also accessible from the home page, maybe from some kind of drop-down menu. And then you might actually have even a tertiary set of pages. And lots of times these can only be accessed from the secondary pages, but you can certainly make those decisions. But depending upon your product and customer, you need to categorize this information, which will drive the schematic. This can be really difficult because you need to figure out how your customer and or your different types of customers would look for information. And it may not be the same way you would look for information, but do you want to separate your site by product type or by industry of the consumer? Say you sell something like testing kits. You could separate it by types of tests, like a drug test, an insulin test, a pregnancy test, or even samples, blood tests, hair tests, urine tests, or you can categorize information by solution for businesses or home use. So each potential target market would know where to go to find information relevant to them. Generally, there's more than one answer, and so you need to think like your customer to find the right answer. And then along with standard navigation, each site needs to have other means of finding information. Search engines, internal search engines, so the users can type in a word or phrase they wish to find it within the site. Site maps are always helpful. They're kind of the schematic of the site. A tag cloud is helpful, and also breadcrumbs kind of help people determine where they are in the site so they can get back to where they need to be. Helping users know where they are at all times is critical, because if they get lost, they're just going to leave. And with that, let's move on to the second pillar, which is content. The content for the site covers everything from the words on the page to blogs and videos and podcasts and all those other things that you create for your site. And the answers to the questions we thought about earlier, like what you're trying to accomplish on your site and who it's for, those things will drive the tone and the key messaging for your site. And those things need to be consistent across your site. To really resonate with your potential customers or readers, you need to write with their needs in mind. So remember the 4-second rule. They're going to stay or go after 4 seconds. So you really need to say what your product can do for them, front and center. And writing for the web is different than writing for, brochures or some other offline content. Less is definitely more on the web. I get lots of people who want to tell the entire world everything they know on their website. And, your website isn't a dissertation. That's not the place for it. Instead, you need to write in a manner that's, easy to scan and digest. Readers should be able to move swiftly through your content, yet still be able to find the information they're looking for. And the content on each page must stand alone. Remember, a person can enter the site from anywhere. Yes, most likely it'll be the website, and they'll follow kind of the trail that you left for them with links. But with search engine optimization and things like that, it's not necessarily true. And they may come in through, landing page from a promotion and then move to a different part of your site. So each page needs to stand on its own. It needs to be somewhat independent. And then finally, when you're thinking about writing content, you need to incorporate keywords. And we're going to have a whole section on search engine optimization, so I'm not going to get too much into it here. But one of the best ways to boost your natural search rankings is to pepper your site content with keywords. So it's just something you need to consider when you're starting to plan your site.